Craving your next action-packed adventure? Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command, like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, where a lone astronaut must save humanity from extinction, narrated with stunning intensity by Ray Porter. From electrifying suspense and daring quest to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, unleash your adventurous side with gripping titles that'll keep you guessing. Discover exclusive Audible originals, hotly anticipated new releases, and must-listen bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Because Audible knows there's no greater thrill than the one that speaks to you. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Start your free 30-day trial at audible.com/WonderyUS. That's audible.com/WonderyUS.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
Hello, friends. Returning champion to the show, Carly Flumer joins me here in studio to ask me questions. We flipped the script, and I gave her autonomy for an Ask Me Anything episode of Out of Patience. She is a two-time metastatic refractory thyroid cancer survivor who's dedicated her entire life to patient advocacy, specifically for the adolescent and young adult cancer community. She was a scientific data analyst at the National Cancer Institute, and she basically ran all senior administrative coordination at Innova Health Systems. She walks the walk, she talks the talk, and you're in store for a great show. I'm in the hot seat this time. Let's get started. Carly Flumer!
I'm back!
You are back. Oh my God, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you too.
It's just like another wonderful, nostalgia moment.
Yes.
About relationships and friendships from the club that it kind of sucks to really be a part of, but you just make friends for life.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so this show is a kind of a young adult cancer retro throwback episode because just last night, for the listener's sake, as of today's recording, I attended Stupid Cancer's 15th anniversary birthday party.
That's huge.
It was really big, and I feel really old.
No. But congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment.
I was so happy to be there. And this is may sound weird or anti-ego, but of the 150 some odd people that were there, no one knew who I was, and I was really happy about that. Because I stepped away almost 4 years ago to give it the life it needed without me tethered to it. And that new leadership, new culture, I was aging out. I was probably way more aged out. I think when I turned 40, I christened the Young Adult Cancer Alumni Society. And then now, how relevant could I be to an 18-year-old? So the whole organization really just followed the generational cues. And as much as I hate the fact that the room was packed with 20-somethings with cancer,
sure,
I was happy they were there and they had a home and everything is still carrying forward with the momentum we'd hoped would happen.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're here to ask me questions.
I am.
Yes, so fire away.
Oh my gosh. Well, how did you get started with Stupid Cancer? I don't know the origin story.
Are you serious? How many years have I known you?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, all right. So this part of the conversation, well, again, most of my listeners know that I was diagnosed with brain cancer in college and given, the whole proverbial 6 months to live. That's like a nice PR headline. And 27 years later, they can go fuck themselves.
Sure.
So, aging is a blessing in disguise, but
Absolutely.
It's a good problem to have.
Yes.
And I used to fix computers. I used to play piano. I had a whole life planned for myself at 21 years old, got shot to shit. But I found out once I knew I kind of maybe wasn't dying that I just got a job that I hated to have because I had other plans in the works that got, again, shot to shit. I spent like 5 or 6 years working in old school advertising, like Don Draper without the sexism. Maybe it was the 90s. Could have been, residual shitness that wouldn't work well today. And in doing so, I managed to find like a new cadre of friends who didn't know I had cancer. And in the 90s, it was still a stigma. It was a whisper campaign. You thought it was contagious. It was crazy to think that by today's standards. But I got to meet all these people who didn't know I was sick, who didn't judge me, who I didn't feel judged by. And just getting that career started gave me a whole new lease on life. And it was only until I discovered Livestrong in the earliest days, in its heyday before they fucked it all up because Lance was, what a piece of shit. And I'm on the record of that. For what it's worth, they threw the baby out with the bathwater. But what resulted of that was this young adult coalition that came out of it, which inspired me to start Stupid Cancer. I just felt like the voice of, the Gen Xers back then, we were in our 20s back then, wasn't heard. It was all about little baby Timmy and little Grandpa Herbie, and nothing mattered to us from an age-appropriate perspective. And someone had to do something about it. So the scientists got on board, the advocates got on board, the policy groups got on board, but there was no marketing person to get on board. So I built Stupid Cancer to serve as this sort of cultural brand that could be angry and pissed off and funny and not about Hallmark cards, wristbands, and ribbons. And that's how it got started.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So how far do you think it's come in terms of what you would hope it would be, or is it all that you hoped it would be?
History is a teacher.
Uh-huh.
And I always look back at what was, what wasn't, and it's hard to compare objectives and goals over 20 years without looking at where we were and what is success, 20 years later. One thing I can share with you and with my listeners is that in 2004, when all of this kind of started to coalesce and I got sucked out of advertising into policy work, that the phrase young adult cancer wasn't even in the research. It wasn't in the publications. It wasn't part of IRB studies. It didn't exist as a term. And part of the manifest of the Young Adult Alliance that Livestrong gave birth to was to first define the research protocols of what is young adult cancer. It took several years, but it eventually trickled into ASCO and ONS and all the acronym cancer organizations that listeners may or may not know what those mean. But that was progress. The little thing like that we could stare at, 5 years afterwards in like 2007 and say, all right, mission accomplished for that one. And then what is age-appropriate care in what we used to call psychosocial well-being, right? Which is now mental health. Psychosocial that's the academic sciencey nerd way of saying, can this suck less for your brain and your life?
Yeah.
Not your biology.
Sure.
So working with researchers and psychologists and psychiatrists, there was a group called the Association of Psychosocial Oncology that was started. That paved the way for how your quality of life had to become tantamount to your quantity of life or quality of care. So that is another really big thing. Treating people based on their age first and their biology second. I would look at another huge win for young adults being the Affordable Care Act. That was obviously something that was already on the plate with Romney Care when he was the governor of Massachusetts. And when Obama took over, he wanted to export that and negotiate. As imperfect as it was, it's kind of an insurance bailout, but it did the one thing that mattered most to Gen X and millennials at that time, which is no pre-existing condition for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And when you're as fucked up as you are, having had cancer in your single digits, your teens, your 20s, the last thing you want is to be judged based on a history you didn't ask for. That was a massive win. And one more that I'll put in terms of how to go. How's it going? Breast cancer in young women was never really taken seriously from an age-appropriate perspective because mammograms only worked in less dense breast tissue post-menopause. But groups like Komen and the Young Survival Coalition and the Living Beyond Breast Cancer groups all rallied to build policy piggybacking on the Affordable Care Act. I mean, again, creature of history here. And they put in a omnibus spending pork thing pork is usually a bad thing. This was a good one. That lowered the age of screenings to 40 for the first time since mammograms were invented and screening guidelines were invented by X, Y, and Z. And what that did was that forced the diagnostics companies to change their mammogram tools to account for denser breast tissue in premenopausal women who may be over 30. And that gave a huge open door to let's try to not get breast cancer, not just at 50, at 40. But it also did one really important thing. It guaranteed federal protections and full coverage for reconstruction for the rest of your life.
Wow.
If you have a mastectomy under 40 years old, you are going to be, it's almost like recompense for having to do harm in Hippocrates' world. It's called iatrogenic medicine, just jargony jargon. You can get free reconstruction for the rest of your life to preserve your identity as someone who values the public-facing part of that body. And it was a women's health initiative. It was a federal health policy initiative. It forced insurance companies to do these things. What I just thought, those 4 or 5 little things, well, that's just up to 2014. That I look back and say, holy shit, that was the groundwork that needed to happen. And I think about what is mission accomplished with asterisks. You're not going to stop young adults from getting cancer, but the number of young adults who are getting cancer today is population adjusted and apparently around the same. So we're not getting more cancer, but ideally we're being treated better, again, with an asterisk.
Sure. I was going to ask, how do you feel hospitals are doing in terms of placing patients in a specific AYA segment of care as opposed to the pediatric unit versus the older adult unit? Because some hospitals, they do have young adult wards for teens, but some hospitals do not recognize that.
We talked about the third door as a metaphor back in the 2000s, that there's kids, there's adults, and there should be an AYA door.
Sure, yes.
And it really wasn't until like the age of genomic medicine where they realized that giving young adults pediatric protocols, like give the 20-something the 8-year-old chemo, had them live better and live longer. And the adult oncologist who was treating that 22-year-old would never know to give that young adult a pediatric protocol because they don't live in pediatric oncology. So once it was figured out that there's more money to be made by prescribing the right medicines to patients, then there was an unofficial subspecialty created out of pediatric oncology, which was kind of nicknamed KAYAK, K-A-Y-A-K, Kid, Adolescent, Young Adult Cancer. Oh, sorry, K-A-Y-S-C, not like the boat. Yeah. And, it's kind of like an unspoken, uncertified, but there are now pediatric oncologists who have extended the age of the clinic up into 28.
Wow.
So, but not every hospital has the third door.
Sure.
Rhetorically speaking. And it's been difficult to get that wide adoption because of just different perceptions, different skepticism. And do they see enough young adults at that hospital to justify the expense of this? Because I say only with love, there's still only 80,000 or so of us diagnosed under 40 every year, which is like 5% of all cancer diagnoses.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, but out of 1.9 million a year, we're a loss leader. Like pediatrics is a loss leader to the fundamental capitalistic nature of our fucked up healthcare system. But I'd like to think that more oncologists who have moved from just peds to peds and young adults and adolescents per se are more acutely aware of the age relevance of their patients, and that just doesn't trickle into their mental health and their psychosocial and all these other spiritual, economic, financial, career, but into their medical treatment. If there is a genetic test, if there's a biomarker test, if there's a chemotherapy trial that they know has better outcomes in young adults, which is for kids, they will know that's the first line you get instead of that. So that's my optimism, which is rare, but that's my optimism.
So I listened to an episode that you recently did on clinical trials.
Thank you for being my listener.
Yes, I loved it. She was brilliant. I can't remember
Celine.
Yeah, Celine, who runs Mass Bio.
Yes.
And
You know them?
I don't, but
Now you do.
I do, but I work in patient recruitment and clinical trials as well. And so I was wondering, the trials are usually for patients who are 18 and above, and they're not usually for a specific group of adolescents and young adults. I don't think I've ever seen a trial that's specifically for adolescents and young adults. So how do you think that plays into what you just talked about?
Well, trials used to be way over 18. Getting trial awareness, getting trial recruitment standards and guidelines, which are messy in general, down to 18 was a huge, that's another young adult cancer advocacy policy research thing. You work with the system to find the loopholes, honestly, where the profit is. And if you lower the guidelines to 18, you'll get more because it's now about genetics and not about biology. So just because a young adult may have lung cancer, it doesn't matter that they're 18, they have lung cancer.
Yeah.
So you need the data into the registries to figure out the drug development. So it's just extending the population to, above minors because the data pool is now almost irrelevant to how old you are. So that's my take on that. There's value there because, again, you look at, not a sponsor, Keytruda, for example. Keytruda, printing money these days.
Yes.
Because every time they find something else that cures or helps, boom, there you go. An 18-year-old will get Keytruda as much as an 80-year-old will get Keytruda because of their genomics. So, again, it's an odd win because it's now about your DNA, not your geography of your cancer like it used to be. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I
flipped it.
I know. I would like to see a trial that's specifically for adolescents and young adults, or that has a segment that is like an objective that focuses on adolescents and young adults specifically. I've participated in clinical trials that are focused on quality of life, and that's huge, especially for thyroid cancer. Which
you had.
I did have. And I talked about that on my last episode. Please listen to it if you would like to.
Well, we will link to the Carly Flumer Takes No Shit episode in the show notes.
Yes. So and quality of life, that's just something that I don't think doctors focus on enough either. What do you think about that? I see I flipped it on you again.
Well, all right. So cliffhanger, we're going to take a quick break and be right back with the illustrious, prestigious Carly Flumer.
Are you feeling stuck in your career or lacking employment at the moment? Experiencing symptoms of job dissatisfaction? You might be suffering from a common condition known as career stagnation. But don't worry, there's a solution. Monster.com. Monster.com offers a comprehensive suite of career-boosting tools designed just for you. Our free resume review and AI interview prep tool will help you stand out from the crowd. Need more guidance? Dive into our career advice articles for expert tips and insights. And don't forget to check out our salary tools to ensure you're getting paid what you're worth. Side effects may include a new job, increased confidence, and a brighter future. Consult Monster.com today and take the first step towards your new career. Ready for your next job opportunity? Visit Monster.com now.
All right. My brain is made of pudding these days.
Oh, okay.
So reframe your last question.
Okay. So I was just asking about the quality of life aspect of cancer and how it's perceived by doctors, because I think they're really focused on the biologics of cancer and not so much the quality of life, or they're not focused on the values and the morals of the patient. They're really more focused on the cure, which may or may not happen.
Right. I want to save that other part for later in the show.
Okay.
I work a lot in the nerdy, sub-basements of value-based care now. We just lost half the listeners. I said value-based care. They're all gone. What the hell? I'm done. Jargon. Goodbye. But what that basically means is a combination of how do you keep the patient happy and functional and well and not going broke, not just clinically, but through experience. I kind of sum that up in my own version of that way. And we look at this age of like digital therapeutics. And what that means is like, here's an app that keeps you sane on top of your medicine. And quality of life back in the day was peer-to-peer support. And today, that is a digital platform of meeting other people like you. There's all this genuinely published peer-reviewed data to suggest that meeting someone that is like you is good for your well-being. So that fundamental understanding of peer-to-peer is quality of life. And there are apps that do that. There are more cancer apps than ever now. Tinder for Cancer is like every platform.
Yes.
Maybe without the dating part. But just,
I don't think so.
But just, have you seen things I haven't seen?
I have not. But
Oh, come on. Your profile's out there. I know it is. The whole point is that this idea of your mental state, your not fear of going broke, you're keeping your job, you're being able to work, there's a trial near you, helps you live your life as just an economic contributor to society. And it doesn't take you out of the workforce. It doesn't put you on disability. It costs the government less that you have this capacity to function while you're still in treatment. So they're going to need more quality of life metrics and data to substantiate that. It's almost like a non-contraindication. If you live better over here, you'll be more compliant, you'll be more adherent, and irrespective, ideally, if your doctor has empathy or not, you become a little more empowered to take control of your choices.
yeah. If you were diagnosed with cancer today, how would you like to be treated differently than you were back then?
I mean, I'm an old fuck now. So this actually speaks to long-term side effects, right? I mean, if it were me,
Sure.
I look great, says my wife, but don't look under my hood because that's a goddamn mess, right?
I heard that in your episode with the paper boy. I can't remember, with the rare disease.
Yeah,
Yes.
never look under the hood.
Yes.
That's exactly it. Like clean up nice and never look under the hood. For, millions of Americans who have had cancer, cure doesn't really mean anything.
Yes.
It just means biologically it's not killing you anymore.
Sure.
But there's a boat wake of consequence for having gone through like Chernobyl, easy bake ovens, and, sterility-driven chemotherapies and relapses. You're kind of scarred and marred and mentally disbarred.
Sure.
I just made that up. I like that. I'm
I
gonna
do
use
like
that.
it. Yes.
So having cancer in an age where you've already had it just adds so many more complications. And especially if you are a young adult or a ped who had it years ago, where are your medical records? Oh, they're on a Post-it note somewhere in the ocean, right? No one kept records back then. How do we even know if I were just an ordinary Joe citizen that got some kind of leukemia or whatever, colon cancer in their late 40s? I wouldn't know what to do because I don't hope to get cancer one day.
Sure.
It's like think of healthcare as a Walmart that you never want to enter. But what's on the shelf, someone else controls.
Yeah.
And if you want that, someone tells you how much you can pay for it and what it's going to cost you to do it. So it's a very different, like, I can't wait to get cancer and listen to this podcast. That's not how healthcare works. So if I'm just an unassuming citizen who gets this diagnosis, I'm in a position of my medical team, the internet, and utter blithering chaos. And I think that's how you have to you shouldn't have to hope that you know something. People that know me, like, thank God I know Matt because he told me these things.
Sure.
Shouldn't have to know me
Yes.
as a determinant of whether you live or die. That was an indirect answer to your question. I think people are still kind of fucked when they get cancer. And we're so much more aware of these determinants being like, are you black? Are you white? Are you gay? Are you Jewish? Are you in Utah? Are you where you are, where you live? Your whole life is led up to this moment that defines where you're going to be in a year. If you're at a major cancer center, no surprise, they probably have all this fancy concierge service.
Sure.
Rural America's 80% of trials and percentage of care. They don't have all the fancy schmancy harpists in the lounge, plucking those strings to make you feel better. So it's regrettable that this is still the case, but looking at progress, we're in a better spot to even be aware that this is the case.
So with the COVID-19 pandemic, it brought
The what? I'm sorry.
the
Say that again. I am unfamiliar with what you speak of.
Well, you should listen to Vax On
Oh, I
by
know that
Matthew
show.
Zachary and Laura Nanos.
Yeah.
I love her. How that brought to light a lot of the shit in healthcare that has been going on. Do you think it's brought to light any shit that has gone in cancer as well? Because I know that a lot of screenings had to stop for cancer. Now people are now just finding out because they had to stop screening. So do you think that it brought to light anything in the cancer world?
Well, we actually did a documentary series with the CDC
Okay.
a year and a half ago called The Big Screen, How COVID Fucked Everything Up
Okay. Well, there you go.
for cancer patients.
Yeah.
And it talked about what was obvious. You know, everything's shut down. There's nowhere to go to get screened.
Yeah.
And it's just going to move. It's pushing everything a little. You know, you kick the can down the road a little bit, but it's just going to mean more people will get sick because they didn't get it when they could have gotten it in the past. If there's any one good thing that COVID taught us, it's that people are more willing to adopt telehealth.
Yes.
But at the same time, going back to that rural America thing, you kind of need broadband
Yep.
to use telehealth, and AOL dial-up doesn't cut it anymore.
No.
And that's where many communities don't even have broadband. And their satellite platforms are kind of crappy. And there's all these security. There's so much just like regular computer tech shit that doesn't work in rural America, let alone having broadband and the internet to use the telehealth that people are now willing to use. It kind of harkens back to eBay in the 90s. I'm not giving that guy my credit card. What's wrong with you? And now, like, I'm not going to talk to a doctor online. Why would I do that? And now, can I please talk to a doctor online? So that's a kind of an odd blessing. But the real reveal was that, no surprise, marginalized communities died more than non-marginalized communities. So it just tore up an even a bigger hole of inequality facing our country. I want to go back to what we talked about before, which is empathy in medicine,
Okay.
right? I've been talking about this for 20 years. Is it fair to expect your doctor to have what I would call congenital empathy? I would like to believe humanity is empathic, largely 80%, like a significant. We want to be, maybe not in New York, maybe we want to be empathic and understand that our actions affect other people and kind of read emotions of other people. But not every human being that works in medicine is born that way. And do you want your doctor to be a therapist or a mechanic? What are your thoughts?
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? I want a mix of both. And I was very lucky to have a doctor who treated me for all 3 of my surgeries while I was going through treatment that really focused on my quality of life. And he asked me, what do you want as an outcome besides your cancer being gone? Like, what do you care about as a person? And that really meant a lot to me. And quality of life, of course, was really important to me. So that's what I focused on. But I know that not all doctors are like that. And I've had that experience where I've been told you have to manage your side effects on your own. So it's difficult.
Right. And this isn't like a broad brushstroke conversation, but if you were to just anecdotally look at all the conversations I've had in 15 years doing radio, the vast majority are like, oh, just figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
Or there's nothing wrong with you. It's in your head. And I hate that could be a reality.
Sure.
And I also think it's unfair to just expect the average person to just lurch into superhero mode on their own. When you're terrified, it's not a moment to stand up and say, hey, I care about this and you don't. But that's just human nature in real life. I think what you just exposed is optimism, that it is possible
Yes.
to have an empathic human being taking care of you who toes the line between just emotional intelligence and auto mechanic, just fix what's broken.
Yeah, I think that's where the patient-provider relationship comes in, because if you're looking for, it depends on what you're looking for, I think. I mean, I think as cancer patients, we're obviously looking to be treated and looking for a quote-unquote cure. But if you're looking for specific things as a young adult, ask about that of your provider. And if that's not what they're providing you, then maybe it's time to look for a second opinion or go somewhere else. Or if you like this doctor, if you have a good relationship with them, maybe that might be a job of a caregiver to provide that empathy,
Well, that also speaks to, I remember a colleague, a young adult cancer survivor, who I guess had her own moxie kind of going into the situation, was thinking of her relationship with her care team as like, my company is Save My Ass Incorporated, and I'm hiring you to do that.
Yeah.
So she was able to say, no, I'm going to go somewhere else because you're not talking to me the way I want to be. You're not filling the job description I hired you for.
Sure.
But not everyone has that moxie going in, especially if it's like a rare disease or a life-threatening chronic condition or cancer. You're probably scared to death.
Yes.
And you're hoping that this is the right thing for you. And there's really been no national survey on how many people have fired their doctor. I would love that data.
Yeah, I fired one of my doctors.
You're the one.
Maybe. He was supposed to prescribe me radiation. And when I went in, he was like, how was the radiation? I was like, you didn't prescribe it to me yet. So, so that was great. So I went to another doctor. But it's just like keeping track of your records. And when a doctor walks in the room, I don't want them to have to go over my record so many times and then ask me, oh, by the way, how are you doing? Like, no, take a second to look at, my chart,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Lightning round.
Sure.
We got 2 minutes left.
How do you think healthcare is going these days in terms of, we just went through a pandemic. We're still in a pandemic. And then monkeypox and
Space cancer is coming soon, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Well, if it's not something of Earth that'll kill you, something from space will kill you.
Okay.
Yeah. So the flying monkeys from Mars are going to come with space cancer.
No, but really, how do you think healthcare has evolved since you've been diagnosed?
That's a 30-minute answer.
Oh, well, that's true.
But super quick, I have a cockeyed optimism that American citizens are more aware than ever about how fucked we get by healthcare. And there's, I want to say, a consumer awakening that there are ways to fuck back with the system, especially when it's in industry's interest more than ever to make sure every patient knows there's a thing that's right for them, but everything kind of cock blocks them being aware of the thing that's right for them. So that's why things are just stuck in committee in market access. They're never going to see the light of day. They'll never get reimbursed. But if you tell Americans that there's a way to just not get cancer these days because of the test you can take and you'll never get it, you'll have the good kind of riots in the street. Because it's unfair to our liberties, if I'm going to go all patriotic here, that we don't know that there's something we can get as consumers that can actually help us. And never before in our time have we had that chance to awaken the country in a very digestible way that here's where healthcare is going. And you're now being denied choices because there now are choices. So that's where I see optimism in the next couple of years, because all these tests that are existing now with blood tests that can detect multiple things, they're going to be at Walmart in 5 years. But how do we get them at the Walmart? And we need American voters and American citizens to lobby to get that done. So that's my optimism in terms of where we are based on the last, 55 years? Since it was 51 years since the Cancer Act. So we're in the next 5, I think we'll do more than the last 50.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on your show.
Thank you for joining me on my show.
My show? Your show.
Well, whose show is it?
It's both of ours.
It's both of our shows.
Yes.
Carly Flumer, thanks for coming on board again for number 2 on Out of Patience.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Out of Patience with Matthew Zachary is an Off-Script Health production. The executive producers are Matthew Zachary and Andrew McDowell. It's mixed and edited by Kyle Moore. If you like the show, ratings and reviews are always welcome. Leave us a message anytime at 855-AUDIO-66. That's 855-AUDIO-66 to share your healthcare shitness with us, and we might just play them on the air on a future episode. For more information about this show and Off-Script Health, visit offscript.com. That's offscript, no T.com.